It was a rainy evening in Lucknow, the kind of rain that doesn't wash away fear but deepens it. The air was thick, heavy with moisture, and the streets near Hazratganj were deserted earlier than usual. In the middle of this silence stood an old, abandoned building, a hospital that once treated thousands but was now a skeleton of rusted iron, broken windows, and corridors that seemed to whisper in the dark. The locals said the hospital had been cursed, haunted by the souls of patients who had never left. Few dared to even pass by it at night. For years, the place had remained locked, but one stormy evening, a group of 5 friends decided to challenge the legend. They were students from a nearby college, Rahul, Samir, Priya, Arav, and Neha, each daring the other to prove their bravery. They laughed loudly as they stood at the hospital's gate, trying to mask the nervousness hidden beneath their smiles. Samir pushed open the iron door, which creaked like a scream echoing across the empty street. Inside, the hospital smelled of dampness and decay. The walls were stained, the floors cracked, and faded signboards hung loosely. OPD, surgery, maternity ward, words that once guided patients now seemed like silent warnings. The 5 of them clicked on their phone flashlights, their beams trembling against the walls as if even the light itself was scared to stay. They moved deeper into the hospital, their laughter fading into uneasy silence. Every step echoed unnaturally, as though hundreds of unseen feet walked with them. Priya, trying to sound brave, whispered, "It's just an old building. Nothing else." But her voice shook. Then suddenly, the sound of metal clattering echoed from a distant corridor. Everyone froze. Arav tried to laugh it off, probably a rat. But when they turned the light toward the sound, they saw a rusty wheelchair rolling slowly across the hallway, with no one behind it. Neha gasped and grabbed Rahul's arm. The group exchanged nervous glances. They knew it wasn't the wind, there was no wind inside. Yet the wheelchair moved until it disappeared into the darkness. Against their better judgment, curiosity pulled them forward. They followed, step by cautious step, until they reached the maternity ward. The door creaked as Arav pushed it open. Inside, the air was freezing cold, unnaturally so. The beds lay broken, rust covering the frames. In the corner, an old cradle swayed gently, though no one had touched it. Priya felt her stomach twist. She remembered the local legend, the story of a woman who had died in childbirth here decades ago, her screams echoing through the walls even after her death. Neha whispered, "Can you hear it?" At first, they thought it was the wind, but then it became clearer, a faint cry, like a newborn baby. The cradle moved more violently now, and a shadow stretched across the far wall, shifting as if someone unseen rocked the cradle. Suddenly, the crying stopped, replaced by a sharp scream that pierced the silence. The sound came from everywhere and nowhere at once. Rahul panicked. "We should go, now." But when they turned to leave, the door slammed shut on its own. The sound thundered across the room. Samir tried pulling at the handle, but it wouldn't budge. Behind them, the cradle had stopped moving, but now a figure stood there. A woman in a torn hospital gown, her face hidden by tangled black hair, her arms outstretched as if still searching for her lost child. Her head tilted unnaturally, and when she lifted her face, her eyes were hollow, bleeding shadows. Priya screamed. The lights on their phones flickered, one by one going out. The group clung together in the pitch-black room. They could hear footsteps circling them, nails scraping across the walls, whispers in broken Hindi and Urdu, words they couldn't understand but felt deep in their bones. Samir shouted, "Who's there?" His voice cracked, and for a moment there was silence. Then the woman's voice came, chilling, echoing, as if from beneath the earth, "Tumhe bhi rukna hoga, hamsha ki liye." The lights returned for a second, and they saw her inches from their faces, her mouth open wide in a scream that no human throat could produce. They rushed toward the door, slamming into it together, and finally it gave way. They ran blindly through the corridors, not caring where they went, as long as it was away from her. But the hospital was a maze. Every hallway looked the same. The sound of the woman's scream followed them, sometimes behind, sometimes ahead, as though she was everywhere at once. Rahul tripped over something, an old stretcher, and fell hard. When the others bent to help him, they noticed the stretcher wasn't empty. A body covered in a blood-stained sheet lay there. Slowly, the sheet slipped, revealing a face with hollow eyes, the exact same as the ghostly woman. The group ran, dragging Rahul with them, until they burst into the main lobby. The exit door stood just a few meters away, but between them and freedom stood rows of hospital staff, doctors and nurses in blood-stained coats, their heads hanging low. One by one, they lifted their faces, pale and lifeless, their mouths twitching into smiles too wide for their faces. Arav shouted and ran first, pushing through them. His body went straight through as if they were smoke, but each ghost left icy burns on his skin. One after another, the friends forced their way out, screaming, until they finally burst through the hospital gates into the rain-soaked street. They didn't stop running until they were blocks away. Their breaths came in ragged gasps, their hearts pounding as if they would explode. When they finally slowed, they turned back. The hospital stood silent, dark, almost innocent in the rain. But just before they turned away, they saw it. At the window of the maternity ward, the woman stood cradling a child, watching them with those hollow eyes. The friends never spoke of that night again. They avoided that street, that part of Lucknow altogether. But deep inside, each of them carried the same unshakable terror, the feeling that a part of them never left the hospital. And sometimes, late at night, when the rain fell hard, they could still hear the faint cries of a baby in the wind, calling them back.